28 millimeter because I need to be outside the box. Part of it is we were trying to copy some incandescent lighting that was 28 millimeter in diameter, so we coated up some 28 mil stock. And first thing I do when I start is I take the tube and I clean the powder out of one end. And you can just do that with your finger and roll it. And it makes a really nice smooth edge. And I like to keep the mark on the top, which it isn't, but so that way the next person can see what color it is, because it's really hard to see what color it is. As you can see, so I know that's the top, and I would mark, if I was going to make two, let's pretend that I already have one end done. This end I would mark the end where where I clean the phosphor, and that would be the end. And I'd go 18 millimeter, and then I'd put a mark on the top at dead center. And that's how I would know where the electrode is. And very importantly, I would make a mark somewhere on the table where dead center is here. So I know I would line up. I keep my table, with an edge, so I have a center there, and I just put a piece of masking tape over here if I'm doing a right angle. So I just throw it over there, know the measurement, done. But I'm going to put a double back on this too. It's my thing. So I've got a long electrode shell, and this is runs at about 80 milliamps. And it's got a little extra glass on it, and these are available in Europe mostly, and that's how the Europeans do things. We make our own electrode holders. I've always made my own electrode holder because I like silicone. It grabs the glass really well, and it also protects the pinch. If it gets too hot, it insulates the pinch, keeps it from cracking. Another trick that I've done is sometimes it gets really hot, so I'll take a clothespin and I'll actually put it on and hold it like this and do it if I have a really short electrode to do. 2 pieces of friction tape, a piece of glass, and tie wire, and you've got yourself a 90-degree electrode holder. Releases beautifully too. So I've got my electrode. You notice I have a cork on the end. Very important, because I don't have to stop it from there. So, cork on. See what happens. I have a hand torch, and I have, doing this is 90% prep. I like to use a little oxygen. So you can see when I kick it in, I have oxy. So I like doing this in a crossfire because I really like gravity, to be able to let the glass move. And whatever you do, never use anything to block the end. It will crack.
I use a different technique, which we'll show in a minute, which is a way to work around the cracking because pushing on it is guaranteed to make it crack. I agree with that. So that's why I go up at a slightly different way. But that's why we're doing it this way, to show how Dave does it. The different techniques about going about solving the same problem.
So what I'm doing now is I'm just working the heat. I've got the oxy on, right on the center. Usually I can pull it off, but it's been a while.
electrodes like that shape. If you want to, they make that electrode with the extended end on it. If you feel like cheating, you can sort of make it yourself. But the seals end up being in the wrong places.
Not very pretty. So then once you have your electrode on, you want to get the entire area hot again. The actual annealing time of the glass, the thickness of the glass, is the time it takes to cool down in air. But it's got to be all the same temperature before it cools down. So you notice I'm concentrating the heat on the inside, which is really where it tends to crack more. And there it is. That was amazing.
This is a very different way to go about it. Partly because of the tools that I've got available, partly because of who taught me and so forth. But there are a lot of similarities, and I hope we'll incorporate maybe some of David's and some of mine too, and some of the other people who were working on asking for doing some of these. Okay, first thing we're doing, just like David was talking about, is we're wiping out the phosphorus on the inside here. If you don't wipe the phosphor out, you end up with the granules inside here where you making the seal. The glass doesn't contract and expand at the same rate that the phosphorus as the granules do. So it'll end up cracking off right here. So make sure that you clean that out. David found some glass with some really nice tools.
Sorry about that. I didn't.
Okay. So then we get the right size cork for the other end.
What size is that?
This is 20 mil.
25
mil. So I would normally have a stripe down the middle here, so I know where up and down is, especially if this is the second end. This is the first end, and when you're working on the first end, I always put the tubulated end on first, so it gives me more options about where I'm blowing from on the secondary side. And then I'll mark where I'm trying to blow the bubble, which is about right there. You want a good weight to hold this stuff down. Okay, this is lead shot in a fireproof bag. So, when I start here, I make sure
your shop as well.
I just have natural gas in my shop, which is one of the things, and that's why I'm going to use this MAP gas, which is oxygenated propane. And it's hot, it helps with the blackening of the glass on lead free, and it works really well for me. So, being very paranoid about stuff cracking, I'll end up doing some more preheating on the glass than David does. The nice thing that David was doing about using the crossfires is because the flame's so bushy, you're heating a lot more glass and further down in here. So you'll find that you end up cracking on the bottom right here, and you end up getting cracked down this way. So I'll try to get some heat down in this way. And then I start heating the glass here for pulling the end off. And as it starts to, you see it start to contract a little bit and sag a bit. Heat like this, I'm going to pull up so the center ends up being in the center. Sort of like that. Okay? Alright. Now I want to get some more heat in the end there. So contract in, and I'll blow it. I'll blow it out. And I'm blowing it out onto the back of this. I'm not pushing it in because you end up with a sharp corner. You end up with a sharp corner there. And like David was saying, it definitely cracks if you do that. What is it?
So, how is the traffic count that like?
Where do you get that?
This is a flame worker's paddle thing. It's graphite, slippery. It doesn't suck the heat out of it. But you see how it ends up giving a nice round corner there, which is if you just mash the crap out of it, then you end up with a sharp corner and fold it under, and that's really not a good thing. Okay, so heating down here a little bit. Okay, so now I need a hole for the electrode. I'll make a couple puffs here because if you puff it and let it fall back down, you end up gathering raw thickness.
Getting too thick or
Let the top cool, blow later, and that gets you the size right, hopefully. Put pressure on it and blow that off, okay? Damn it. Don't hit it with the edge of the cork because it breaks the corner off like that. But regardless of that, let's go ahead and I'll show you how it goes together. It's going to have a big hole in the side of it, but regardless of that, let's not worry about that. Okay? So I'm holding the torch down here, getting some heat in the back side of it because I've just heated the top. Now here, I would come across here. Actually, what I might do here is, here I've got a carbon rod, and I might be able to heat this down some and get it a little flatter. It looked beautiful before I was a knucklehead there. But while you're thinking, hold the heat down here to get the heat up the bottom of it, because that corner right there is what cracks so badly. You can look and see if you got a seal there. If you have a hole, don't blow in it. You cool the edges off too much. Still plastic. Heat on the bottom. Get some heat up that way. That's a little ugly, but not terrible. Okay. So now, the other thing that's helped me make these successful in the past is using this fiber frax. This is an insulating blanket, and I always do the second one. Do a first practice one, stick in the fiber frax blanket, stick it in there, and it cools nicely like that. So by the time you get around to doing the second one, it is still too hot to touch in the fiber frax, and I think that really helps cooling it off. And I choose to do that instead of going back and annealing in there until it turns black and all that other stuff. So hugely different techniques between Dave and I, but maybe y'all pick up some things you like from both of them and give it to them.
Putting the rollers on the test tube holder is pretty nice.
You like that? Thank you. Sorry for making a mess on your floor, David. trying to just make it a hair leaner. There's so much flash. Is this lead glass, Dave? It just says blank? This is lead free. So is that flash normal? It's flame's too big, right? There's so much, seems like the mixture's a little rich. There's so much flare coming off the...
Oh, you'll get a lot of flare with that.
Okay, I only work with lead free.
Oh, actually, no, it's not. So
you still get all that flare. Is that from the glass or from the burn?
that's from the glass.
Not from the fire being too rich.
Glass.
Yeah, I'm not never.
Actually, soda glass.
So it needs to be a little hotter.
Yeah.
So I should have used the oxy.
Or wait.
It's all right. Where are those tweezers at? Put them here. Tweezers? I had them behind me on that table when I drew it down. Thanks. Where's the electrode?
Oh, an electrode, not one of those.
There's a non-tubulated by your clothespin there.
That's fine. Tell me to hold on to it. Tubulated would be better because I gotta hold it.
You'll take that tubulated one.
Where's my electrode voltage with the torque on it? And
And where's the hand torch torch? Where do I put the hand torch down to hold it? Where do I put the hand torch here when I want?
Hand it to me.
All right. You don't have any holder, huh?
That has little legs on it, so you can
Oh, I see. That's what I got. So I can do that, right?
Yeah.
On the Marinite.
That's Morgan's. It says it's even normal.
Carlos Rodriguez?
Yeah, all of the design?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one from Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God, I love it.
He's so good. He ended up farming.
No, I don't think so. I don't know where it is.
And this is lead, the electrode, David, the glass. So it's lead, electrode, and soda lime blank.
Yep. And you're using the oxy, right? So you see it's
Yep.
producing.
Yep.
Yeah, that keeps it fast. I guess they do that retail for just captain. But they have a liquid oxy tank out inside here, inside the road.
Wait, there's a hole over here? No.
Sure it is.
I think so.
What?
I think so. I see it. It's directly on the side.
In front of me?
Yeah. See it?
Yeah. Still there?
No.
Oh.
I did at first. That was 8 years ago. Now I hate letting it go. I prefer everything got turned up. It's turned on my phone. Right. And that's fun too. We work with we all that's what don't even bring it up to Morgan.
So I went to Houston, yeah,
It still tells the stories of
and you can go. I want to go to the taxi shop.
Now if you use the oxy, it'll go, the black will go away.
Yes.
I know.
Greg? Yeah. I have your card. I'm going to send it to you to say hello. You're next.
I will be. I was really thinking I just gotta get on stuff.
He's got it. It's coming. Nowhere.
I lost my fire. So I stepped on the hose.
What hose?
Is that a hose for the hand torch?
Oh, the hose on the hand torch. That's not good when you're using oxy.
Oh, so you're just annealing the crossfire.
Yeah.
I see that.
And then if I was really doing this, I'd make sure there's no cross breeze or anything in my studio. And they usually have a cooling rack, so just a couple like box inserts to keep it off the table. And then you lay all your right angles.
Yeah.
And the other thing I do that I couldn't do here, I put a black piece of acrylic to stand up here because I know depth from can't see this against the black. So when I'm making a steel here, I can't. I have no depth of them. I mean, this is my own personal fit, but I'm looking to a sea of white and gray rather than looking at the glasses and the black background.
And in my shop, it's all before